Okay, ladies and gentlemen, so yesterday, or I should say today in class, depending on when you're watching this, we took a look at and did an activity as a class where we were, seeing if we could pass the papers even faster. And what we were doing was we were writing a comparison, and that's what we're going to be talking about for this chapter, things called ratios, rates, and proportions. A ratio is a comparison of two like quantities. All right, so for example, if I'm talking about making a juice mixture and I have, two different types of juices, that would be a ratio. How much orange juice to how much pineapple juice, or whatever the case may be. A rate, switch colors, a rate is a comparison of two different quantities. And those are going to be things like I can get, 3 cans of soup for $2, or I can go 30 miles per hour in my car. Those are rates. A unit rate is very similar, but a unit rate compares to 1. And I'm going to put here in parentheses, they use the word per, right? And we've seen that before in some word problems, right? How many, it's $3 per ticket, or it's, $5 per pound, or it's 30 miles per hour, or 12 miles per gallon. A unit price, very similar, except that it deals with money. So the unit price is the amount of money, and I'm abbreviating amount, AMT, for one object. And that object could be a pound, it could be a pint, it could be a quart, it could be an item, like a can of soup. So that depends on what we're talking about. We're also going to have to be able to do something called a better buy. And a better buy is the item with the lower unit price. And we'll spend a little bit more time talking about that in class. All right, so let's get to some examples here. We're going to start off just with some practice of writing ratios. This should be review from 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. Hopefully it is. So over here you'll see we have some information about a 7th grade field trip, how many students, adults, and buses there were. And we're going to be writing the ratios. It asks us to write them as a fraction, and it does want us to reduce those to lowest terms. So I have my handy dandy calculator. Okay. Adults to students. So when I look at this, we have 24 adults and we have 180 students. So if I enter that, reduces down to 2/15. All right, so that's telling me that for every 2 adults, there are 15 students. That's the ratio. Students to buses, so again we have 180 students and we have 4 buses, which I believe is going to be 45-1. This is an example of a unit rate. It's telling me that there are 45 students on each bus. Buses to people, so now I have to do a little bit of work because the people are going to be the students and the adults, so we're going to add those together first. And we're going to get 204. So we're going to have 4 buses to 204 people. And that's a ratio of 1:51. So it's 1 bus for 51 people is what that's telling me. All right, for each, we're now finding the unit rate. Okay, so that means we have to divide. Unit rates are telling me that I have to divide that. So $300 for 8 hours. So we're going to divide that. That's $37.50 per hour. And we draw a little line to show the per hour. 220 miles and 8 gallons. So that's 27.5. And miles per gallon is actually abbreviated MPG. You might have ever seen that on a commercial, perhaps advertising different cars. They'll talk about miles per gallon, MPG. All right, Value Mart is advertising a sale on pencils. A pack of 30 sells for $7.97, whereas a 12-pack of the same brand costs $4.77. Which is the better buy? How do you know? So first thing I'm going to do is I have to figure out the unit price. And the unit price is always going to be money divided by the number of items. So for the 30 pack, $7.97 divided by 30 is going to give me, now I'm going to take this out to a couple of extra decimal places, right? So that's telling me it's 0.226. I rounded, it said 2656, so I rounded that up. And now we're going to do the same thing for the 12 pack, 477 divided by 12. Oops. It's going to give me 0.398, and again, I rounded that up. So now it's going to be a little bit easier to compare. So even though money only goes to 2 decimal places, when you're doing a unit price for a comparison, you may need to take it out to a 3rd decimal place, to the thousandths, so that you can have a better comparison. So the one that's the better buy is going to be the 30 pack, because the unit price is lower. Now, a lot of people think, oh, the more you buy, the better the deal is, and that's not always so true. So you always have to be careful and look at those. Something new that we've added into the notes this time for this chapter is this lesson summary. And this is very wordy, but it does kind of give you, it takes what we were talking about and put it into more official mathematic terms. So a unit rate is often a useful measure for comparing ratios and their associated rates when measured in different units. And that's what we did here, right? We turned them into unit rates so that we could compare them. The unit rate allows us to compare varying sizes of quantities by examining the number of units of one quantity per 1 unit of the second. This value of the ratio is the unit rate. Very wordy, but basically it's letting us know that it's going to help us to compare them, and we're doing that because now we're turning them into one quantity. It's kind of like getting a common denominator by turning things into a decimal. All right, and we did that when we compared our fractions earlier in other chapters. Any questions? Bring them to class. Hope you had a good time doing the activity today, and we will see you tomorrow. Thanks, guys.